Okay, the timing now is 8:05. So I'll actually jump straight into the webinar itself. So thank you everyone for taking time out to come for this webinar. This webinar is brought to you by Overmarked. For those that are not familiar with us, we're actually O-level platform. That's where we started a couple of months ago. Right now, we actually expanded to include more subjects at O-level, as well as to include A-level as well. So if you're planning to go to a JC, but you have yet to join our A-level channel, I strongly encourage you to do so. We'll have quality notes for physics, chemistry, bio, math, econs, GP, and history. For those that were familiar with us because you've been with us this year, in the O-level chat, you'll be expecting similar quality of learning materials and free notes as well as content. So be sure to join us. The Telegram channel is at Overmark A-levels. You can also find the link in the O-level chat or on the website itself. It's pretty easy to find us, but make sure you join in the chat and you enjoy wealth of quality notes. Okay, for the program detail itself, today for the first half an hour, we'll actually be doing more of a introduction and breakdown. We'll really lay out for you what is it that you'll be expecting at A levels and what you'll be expecting in poly, and break down using certain criteria. So we'll actually go very in depth. After which we'll actually have our panelists sharing. So the 4 panelists that are joining us today is John, Xingwei, sorry, Emmanuel and Yongxuan. So they will actually be talking a lot more about their personal experience and sharing more about their thoughts on the JC versus Poly debate. After which we'll actually have a short break and we'll actually go into our breakout rooms where you'll be speaking to the individual panelists so that you can ask them questions in a smaller group basis. So you can, they will chat with you. You can ask anything literally that you are interested to find out. And the last part, we actually come back for a conclusion, and there's an open Q&A for everyone that is interested to ask any questions to any of us. Okay. So jumping straight into the webinar itself, I'd just like to introduce myself a little more. I'm Daryl. I'm actually the founder of Overmarked. Here at Overmarked, helping students at the heart of what we do. If you've been with us for a while, you have understood our approach in terms of how we try to curate the best learning material and how we focus on your needs to be your helping hand in your academic journey. On top of just making free notes accessible, we also conduct exam-oriented crash courses to help prepare students for their exams. So we are really dedicated to creating better learning materials and content that students actually want. And we're also happy to share that now we are not only doing for O levels, as well, we'll be doing for A levels as well. So JC or Poly? I'm pretty sure this is the question that all of you will have and the reason why you're here. So I'm going to launch a quick poll, give you a minute to do the poll itself, to vote whether you are more, where do you see yourself next year? Do you see yourself in JC, Poly, or you like undecided? Okay, so let's take a minute to poll. Once I have most of the poll, I actually close it. So give yourself a moment to consider this point before we even share anything yet. And let's see if you change your view after this webinar itself. Okay, 70% of you have voted. I'm missing a vote from around 10 plus of you. Okay, the numbers are pretty interesting. Okay, later I'll share the results with everyone. Okay, last 20 seconds for voting. Okay, closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, let's take a look at the results. Okay, a good 24 of you see yourself in JC, with a smaller percentage. 11 of you see yourself in Polytechnic, while there's actually 24 of you that is undecided. I think the goal today is to ensure that the 24 today will have a much better idea in terms of where you're headed to next. Okay, now, thank you for the results. Next, we'll actually talk about, let's do this simple exercise. So based on what you chose earlier, can you help us rename yourself? So put a bracket beside your name. Is it, if you chose JC, do a bracket JC or bracket Poly or bracket undecided. So this will be to help facilitate the breakout rooms later on. Okay. So please help to rename yourself. For everyone else that's in the chat, kindly mute yourself so that there's as little interference as possible. Thank you very much. Okay, now let's jump straight into the core of this webinar itself. JC or Poly, right? There's so many ways we can break it down and so many things to look out for. So let's break it down in terms of 5 key criteria. So we are going to look at it in terms of personality, your personality and your learning style, the academic load, the difference between JC and Poly, the competition level that you'll face in JC and in Poly, how it affects university entrance, as well as your career prospects. So let's jump straight into it. So before anything, before you can even choose to go to a Poly or JC, you will need to know your L1R5 or your L1R4 score. So if you're going to a JC, you will need to look at your L1R5, which takes into account your English and 5 other relevant subjects, which must include at least one of your math, science, and humanities. For Poly admission, you're actually looking at your L1R4, which is your English plus 2 other relevant subjects and your 2 remaining best subjects. So if you're unsure how to do so, go check out our article on how to calculate your L1R5 or L1R4. It gives a very comprehensive breakdown on how you can calculate the best possible O-level score that you can get. Now, do you identify with any of these personalities that you see here? Are you a clueless sotong whereby you have no idea what you want to do in life, but then your parents tell you to go JC because they tell you it's easier to go uni next time? Are you like, pretty smart and you do well in school and you're actually comfortable with the academic rigor and you actually like it? Or are you a realist whereby, JC is 2 years, Poly is 3 years, and JC is also cheaper, So if you find yourself fitting into any of the personality types here, actually you're more suitable to head towards JC. Okay, so this is just a generic kind of sweeping statement kind of analysis. But if you see yourself fitting into any of this category, do see yourself leaning more towards JC. What about for the Poly side of things? If you are more career driven and you already have an idea of what you want to do in life, you want to develop your skills for your area of passion, and going to uni then after going through the Poly route will actually provide you with that real skills and internship experience. If you fall under that category, you are the career driven, or maybe you see yourself more as a free spirit whereby you enjoy spending your free time to explore your hobbies and interests. Poly might be able to provide the environment for you. Or you merely just a hipster, like, nah, JC is for nerds, I'm too cool for that, you're vibing more with your Poly kids because they seem cooler. That's a possibility as well. So if you see yourself fitting into any of this personality, consider whether you're actually more suitable to go to Poly instead. Now, the breakdown between the academic workload and student life is a very important distinction between choosing the JC path and the Poly path. If you do choose to go down the JC path, do note that there will be 2 streams, mainly the science stream and the art stream. If you want to have a gauge of what's the difference between A-level and O-level, you should think of it as A-levels being almost like 5 times harder than O-levels. So A-levels is a significantly different game, even though the school format and the kind of the way you expect the school life to turn out is actually pretty much similar to secondary school. You still have your recess break, you still have your lessons, you still have your CCA. It's a lot more structured in that sense. There's fewer subjects for sure, but a lot more intensive in terms of the academic rigor. If you are choosing to go down the Poly path, you actually get to choose the course that you want to go for. You should choose something that you're actually interested in so that you're actually more invested into your course itself. So Poly actually functions a lot more similar to university, whereby choosing your course will determine the sort of modules you'll be required to take. So for example, if you're going for a business course, you'll be taking modules related to business, things like finance, accounting, marketing, all of those within your syllabus itself. Going to Poly also ensures that you will get the relevant internship experience in your area of expertise. So yeah, if you are thinking of going to the media field, the internship experience will entail you working at a media agency or production house, which will help to develop your skill sets further. This is something that JC will not provide because JC is more of like a school-like environment. It is a pre-university sort of education. Now, jumping into the detailed analysis of what entails in the JC path. So if you are choosing the science stream, you'll be required to take 3 science subjects, 1 contrasting art subject. You'll be required to take general paper, which is pretty much like English, and you'll be required to do project work in your first year. If you're going for the art stream, is sort of like the opposite. You'll be taking 3 humanities, which are called art subjects, 1 contrasting science subject. Just to take note that math is actually a science itself. So most art students actually take math as their science subject. Same thing, you have GP and you have project work. For both streams, your A level will be calculated out of 90 rank points. You can check out our article, the JC versus Poly article on our website for a more detailed breakdown. But in terms of what you'll be expecting in the 2 years, once you start school in early Jan 2021, you undergo orientation. Not too sure how fun it is right now due to COVID, but yes, there will be orientation. Then the very first time you'll be sitting for exam in JC is actually in June, usually in late June for your mid-year exams. From there, you have an idea how tough JC is, and you'll start working slightly harder, hopefully, for the rest of the year before your JC1 promos. So when it comes to promos, if you pass, you get to promote to JC2. If you fail, however, you'll be required to take a test at the end of December to decide whether you can promote or whether you will retain. So within this period, after your JC1 promos, you will actually be expected to submit your project work, which consists of both a report as well as oral presentation. So you'll actually be done with project work by the time JC1 ends. So if you do promote to year 2, you actually start school in early Jan. Throughout the year, there will be a mad rush to prepare for your prelims. If you're falling behind on your common test, you'll actually be required to attend night study sessions all the way to prepare you to prelims, and when you graduate and you actually take your A-levels. You can actually draw a very strong comparison to what you've been through in O-levels. Just think of it as a more truncated version that's a lot more intense. Now, what will you expect if you go to Poly? So Poly, the key difference is that instead of it being 2 years, it will actually be 3 years. Instead of starting school in end January, you'll actually be starting school in April. Yay, a bit more time before you actually start school, yeah? Same thing, you'll get an orientation, you'll go through semester 1, which is usually from April to September, and semester 2, which is from October to March. Then you have a short break before you start your year 2, and same for year 3. I just want to note that the internship here, I labeled it in like year 3, semester 2, but the truth is this can actually vary. Usually it's in year 3 or even late year 2. Usually that's when the period where you have studied a bit of your course and you're a bit more equipped, then they will actually send you out to gain work experience. For some cases, you can actually have your internship during the holiday break itself. So there's sort of a bit of flexibility, and it really depends on the course itself. So do find out more once you enter Poly, and you can figure out how it's like. In terms of the grading, instead of 90 rank points, in Polytechnic, you'll be graded a point 4.0 of your grade point average. So grade point average, which is commonly known as GPA, is an accumulation of your score across all semesters. So I'll talk about this a little bit more. On average, you'll be expecting 4 to 5 modules per semester. Each module, there's a separate sort of like study material, and there's projects involved, maybe even presentations. Once again, depends more on your course. So it's pretty much a sweeping statement at this point. So that covers more of the academic load as well as the student life. In Poly, there's a little bit more flexibility with your holiday breaks and things like that. JC is a lot more truncated, a lot more intense in that sense. Now, let's move on to the third point of comparison, which is the competition level. This diagram was put out from the MOE document itself, but I think it's a bit too complicated. But I think the main thing to focus on is after O-level, you'll be headed either to a JC, ITE, Poly, and from there, where you'll be attempting to go next is actually university. I actually make this slightly less complicated by doing this breakdown for you. So from the O-level track, you can actually enter a JC through the JAE track, or you can go to Poly using the JAE track. Even from N levels, you can also proceed on to Sec 5 to take O-level before JAE track to Poly, or from N level, you can straight away do your Poly foundation or direct Poly program to go to Poly, or you can also go for higher NITEC in ITE first before heading to a poly. So for A-levels, there are two main types. The main one will actually be your A-level itself, which is the 2-year program. You can also opt to go to Millennial Institute, which is same thing, but just over 3 years instead. One other option is actually taking IB. So actually you won't be taking A-levels here. IB, the only school that provides for it right now, if I'm not wrong, is ACSI. Going to poly or going to uni do gain you access to university. But just to do a quick breakdown in terms of the percentage, from the entire O-level cohort, around 30% will head to JC, 50% will actually head to poly, with the remaining 20% heading to ITE. I just want to give a disclaimer that this is more of a generic figure, so don't quote me for it. This is just to help you have a better visualization of where everybody is headed towards after O-levels. So there's quite a few options. There are even schools like LaSalle if you are focused more on art. But I think those are the minorities, and that's not what I'm focusing on today. Okay, now let's talk about university entrance. I think this is probably the one that you are thinking about the most. Does going to a polytechnic decrease your chance of going to university? Now, let's take a look at some of the facts that are given. So over 70% of the JC students actually enter local university. Now, if you take a look at another statistics, 1 in 3 local university students actually admitted is actually a polytechnic student. So which means that when you go to university and you throw a stone, 1/3 chance you actually hit a poly student, while 2/3 chance you hit a JC student. However, in the whole poly cohort, only 20% of them actually make it to a local university. So we have so much facts and figures going around, but how do we exactly analyze and make sense of this? Now, before we proceed with anything, I just want you to bring across this idea of what we call selection bias to help you really understand what it takes to go to university itself. Now, the reason why going to JC appears to be the easier path to going to university is because there's like a higher percentage of JC students that actually make it to university. So that 70% seems like a huge number. But going to a polytechnic does not actually decrease your chance of going to university. The reason is because the poly cohort is so big. So only the top 20% can make it to university. And this top 20% actually constitutes to 1/3 of the university intake. And something else to highlight is that out of this 70% from JC that make it to university, only 40% actually enters a local university. What we call like your NTU, NUS, as well as SMU, which are the 3 main local universities that students typically aim towards. So only 40% of the JC cohort actually make it to a local U. The remaining 30% either do private university or they actually go overseas for their studies. So the myth that we're trying to break here is that going to poly decrease your chance of going to uni. That is completely untrue. Regardless of whether you go to JC or whether you go to poly, just take note, you still have to do well. If you don't do well, you will not make it to university. That's a simple fact. Okay, so going to poly does not decrease your chance of going to university. Going to JC does not exactly increase your chance of going to university as well. It's just that 70% of JC students do make it to university. But if you're not within that 70%, you're actually worse off than having compared to a poly student, because an A-level cert by itself does not do much, while a diploma itself is actually quite useful and actually something that really will help your career a lot more. So I think that's just something you want to consider. By the end of the day, you still have to do well. Now, moving on to the last point of comparison, your career prospects. At the end of the day, whether you go to JC or poly or you go to uni, it does not matter, because at the end of the day, you'll be working for the next 30, 40 years of your life. So what actually matters more beyond your education is your career. So let's take a look at a few facts and break down these facts. So one fact is that half of Singaporeans actually work in jobs unrelated to their degree, which means whatever you study, you actually don't do that in the future. So all of us, ideally, we think, okay, I study this course, next time I'll work as this. I study engineering, I'll be an engineer. That's untrue. In fact, the job market's a lot more volatile nowadays. With advancement in technology, you know, the world is changing. Jobs that used to exist might not exist anymore. So what you study might not be what you're doing. In fact, there's a very good chance that's actually not what you're doing. So going to poly and taking a certain course does not fix you in that career path. There's actually a lot more flexibility than you think. Same thing when it comes to choosing your university course itself. You don't have to kill yourself if you think you chose the wrong course, because that might not be your job at the end of the day. In fact, it's good to actually enter a course that you're curious about to determine whether that career field is something that you want to be exposed to, or something that you want to do in the future. Now, does having a degree equate to having good jobs? Truth is, degree holders now, they do earn more, but there's no guarantee this will continue in the future. At the end of the day, degree is a piece of paper. It does not add much value to you as an employee, to the company, or in terms of how your career progress. A lot of these skills that you need to progress as a working adult revolves around your soft skills, like how you communicate, whether you're a team player, and a lot more other experience related stuff, like whether you have done certain projects before, what's your previous job and your working experience. So while degree holders do start off at a, like they earn more at the start, but for diploma holder, they actually accumulate more years of experience, which might be more important in certain fields that are focused more on your experience. For example, the media field. Going to university, if you're doing media, does not really help you. Instead, if you have done films and you have done production and you have done designs and you have your portfolio, that will bring you a lot further. So it really depends on the situation. If you're going into a more academia field like research, or you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, then a lot more likely you will have to get a degree for that. So it really depends on what you want to do as an individual. Now, experience or education, which one gets you the job? I think I briefly mentioned this. There's no clear cut which one is better. If you're talking about more high-tech kind of roles, the education might be necessary, right? Because if you don't have the knowledge, you might not be able to do that research or create the products well. But in certain vocational fields, like more art related, design related, or more like even for media, even for business students itself, actually the experience helps a lot more. So whether you go to a JC or poly, I think it's flat out good advice to get out there to gain more experience, be it networking with people or like trying out more things, even working as a like a koi, you know, or like working at koi, or like you're working at barista. All of this, I think, are relevant experience to help you gain more worldview and try more things. Those will come back to actually develop you as a person. So now we have broken down the difference between JC and poly in the 5 main aspects. And here's a summary of what we can break down this entire debate into. So for JC, you actually have shorter duration with 2 years. School fees are cheaper. The subject combinations flexible as compared to poly, because poly you only get to choose one. You know, that's your one course. You have to do that course. In JC, there's a bit more flexibility in that. There's even H3 subjects if you're doing well. There's also things like hybrid combinations. You can read our article. I listed more down there. Okay. The school life is a lot more standard, so it's more predictable in that sense. You have your recess, you have your CCA. Every day you go to school at a fixed timing. If you are late, then you're late. You know, there's less things to worry about in terms of the structure. It'll be a lot more comfortable because it's very similar to your secondary school life. Around 70% of A-level holders do make it to make it to university. 40% make it to a local U. So there's a higher percentage if you want to play the probability game. But once again, you still have to do well, because if you don't fall into this 40 or 70%, you're actually stuck in a very bad position where you have to spend a lot to go overseas or private university. Now, if you go to a JC, the cons are that it's a lot heavier in terms of workload. I'm not scaring you when I'm saying that A levels around 5 times harder than O levels. The retain rate in JC is actually quite high due to the intense competition you actually face from the IP students. So you do need to note that the schools students in the IP program, which are the top 10% from your PSLE, did not take O levels. So if you're able to get an A1 for your O level, that does not guarantee you are getting an A. at your A levels because the syllabus is a lot different, plus the competition is a lot stiffer. So when you do go to a JC, please take note that it will not be as easy as what you did in O level. So if you find that O level you can coast through, it's not going to be as easy. If you're already struggling at O level, be prepared to work the extra mile in JC because it's very easy for you to lag behind. Furthermore, the IP students, they already have a better understanding of the A level syllabus because what they have been studying for the 4 years was to prepare them for A levels instead. So they already have an advantage there. So you do want to take note that the competition level will be a lot more stiff. In terms of the possibility of retaining is there. And if you retain and you do spend 3 years in a JC, that is the same time you spend in a poly. I have a lot of students that actually went to a JC for 1 year and decide to drop out and go to a poly instead. So those are all things that you want to consider. And regardless of where you go, you still have to put in your 100% to ensure that you stay afloat. The school timetable is a lot more structured, like we say, which can be a bad thing if you enjoy that flexibility. For me, I hated it because I had to wake up very early for school. Yeah. That being said, poly still have early classes, but maybe not as disgustingly early as JC. Okay. For poly, there's quite a bit of pros. In terms of the university campus, the poly campus is a lot like a university. For certain schools, you actually have your very big sports hall. If you go to Republic Poly, there's even a swimming pool, things like that. So in terms of facilities, it's a lot better. There's no school uniform, so you can actually wear whatever you want. You can actually be yourself. So I think that's a very big pros if you do go to a poly. The internship opportunity actually gives you a very good deep dive into the working world itself to experience firsthand and to develop real skills and also to network with industries, people that you want to work with in the future. In terms of the academic workload, I do want to say this, there's a lot more emphasis on project work and presentation, but then again, it really depends on the course you are in. There's a larger range of courses to choose from. You can easily go to any of the polys and check out what course they have to offer. So those might actually fit your interest a lot more than trying to force yourself into an A-level syllabus itself. Infrastructure-wise is a lot better. I personally think the orientation is a bit cooler, but then again, it's COVID, right? So how fun can the orientation be? There tend to be slightly more free time and freedom. But that being said, right, this freedom thing is also a bit overly, it's a myth in the sense that if you go to poly, that doesn't mean you can play and that you have a lot of free time. That's not true. Because the thing is, you need to maintain your grade. Your GPA is a grade point average. So every semester, how you do will actually accumulate into the final grade. This is very different from A levels because A levels, you can screw up for your whatever prelims before that. As long as you do well for A levels, you still get a good grade. But for your GPA, if you're playing around in the first 2 years and you only decide to get serious in your year 3, your GPA will have started at a very low point until the extent that no matter how hard you try to catch up afterwards, you can't pull up your GPA. So while we say that there's slightly more time and freedom, there's actually an equal stress in terms of having to perform on a consistent basis. So if you're looking to really want to, you're like, I need to go to a university, then, this can be a lot more stressful than compared to a JC because every single semester, every single module, you have to do well to ensure that your GPA remains at a good position to allow you to go to a university. Now, only 20%, top 20% of the poly cohort do make it to a local university. Poly, in terms of school fees, is slightly more expensive, and it takes 3 years. Something you want to take note of is that there's this idea of a hell week because all your modules start at the same time and they end around the same period. So there will be this week whereby all your assignments are due at the same time. So we actually see a lot of students, they actually just sleep over in the school because they're rushing their projects or their assignments. So this is quite a common occurrence. It's called the hell week, where all of your deadlines are due together. So pretty much something you want to look out for, but you'll probably get used to it the moment you enter a poly. Okay, so I hope that after sharing and breaking down the main 5 points in terms of how we can compare the difference between poly and JC. So let's just do a recap of what are the 5 criteria. Take a look at your personality, okay, and your learning style. Are you more suitable for like a academic kind of pursuit, or are you more a hands-on kind of learner? In terms of academic workload, are you ready for JC? Are you ready for the intensive rigor of the JC syllabus? And how do you see yourself spending your next 2 to 3 years in terms of your student life? Do you want to wear a uniform, or do you want to wear your own clothes? You know, do you want to have slightly more freedom on your hand, or are you okay with dedicating and squeezing what you need to learn in 2 years in the JC? In terms of competition level, I highlighted the intense competition that will be coming due to the IP students, and you'll also be competing with the sort of like the students that did better at O levels that actually went to a JC. So in fact, everybody in JC are quite studious, and the competition is quite intense. You will no longer be able to coast through A level as per, you know, how you coast through in O levels. That's what you're thinking. It's a complete different ball game. Competition level in poly is still competitive, but just take note that you have to constantly maintain your GPA, and that might be something that you want to think about. Now, in terms of your university entrance, we already break down the myth. Going to a poly does not decrease your chance. Regardless of where you go to JC or poly, you still have to do well. So there is no easy way out here. There isn't, I choose this, okay, I can go uni. Or if I could choose poly, I cannot go uni. That's completely untrue. At the end of the day, you still have to do well, and you have to put in the effort. Okay. In terms of career prospects, we already break down the fact that, you know, if you're a degree holder, you do stand a slightly better chance at having a head start when your career begins. But it really depends on your career choice itself, whether going to a poly or going to a uni will suit you more. Poly, whether you're a diploma holder and you intend to invest yourself in a certain craft or a certain field where having a degree does not really matter as much, that might be something you can consider. So if you want to check more about like, if I want to go down this path, right, should I go to a uni or not? I think those are the type of questions that you can consider asking later on. Okay, now, I've been speaking for quite a bit, but it's time for me to stop speaking and actually hand it over to the panelists. So we are very lucky today because we actually have 4 panelists here with us today. 2 of them are from a JC, which went on to uni, and 2 of them are actually from poly and they went on to university. So I'm sure they have a lot of insights and experience that they can share with you that will shed a bit more light in terms of how life would be like in a JC versus how life would be like in a poly. Okay, so each of the panelists, they will actually share for a good 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions for them, do write them down or keep them in mind, because later on when we go into the breakout rooms, you can actually ask them the questions directly, or you can ask them during the generic Q&A session. Okay, so don't be shy lah. I mean, we're all here to find out more, right? So don't paiseh lah. Okay, so first up, the first panelist we have here is actually Xingwei. So Xingwei is actually an NUS grad, and she's working in a medical software company right now. So I won't speak too much. Actually let her do the sharing of all of you. Okay, so Xingwei, over to you.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. So before I start my sharing, I'll just briefly introduce myself. So I took O-level in Tanjong Katong Girls' School. Then after that, I went on to Raffles. Then I went to NUS. I took bio, chemistry, math, and econs for my A-level. And for uni, I studied life sciences and psychology. So later, if there is any like very specific questions to this, like did it what subject to take or whatever like that, then you can ask also. Okay, so firstly, JC was a very obvious route for me because of a few things. One thing is I was doing well in school. So to me, I wasn't worried that I would not do well in JC. And the second and more important thing is that I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. Yeah, I was really only focusing on doing what I had to do at the moment. Like honestly, when people ask me, then which JC do you want to go? I didn't even think about that until I got my O-level result and I had to fill up the form. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm like without any like foresight or anything, I just do what I need to do, and at that point, I just go where I had to go. So I didn't think much. And I also like or dislike all subjects like pretty equally, except that I had a slight preference for biology because I really enjoyed the content. Like I don't know if how many people took O-level bio here, but I honestly really, really liked the subject. I thought it was very fun. So that's why I went on to take it in uni, and I'm still teaching bio now, like for tuition. Yeah, so JC was an obvious route for me, so I went to JC. JC was very fun. Like Even though some people say JC is very, very stressful, and maybe I didn't go to poly, so I can't compare. But to me, JC was very fun. I had a lot of new experiences, a lot of definitely met a lot of like fun friends. Yeah. At the same time, A level was definitely stressful. And just now Daryl said 5 times more difficult, right? I actually disagree. I feel like it's like 20, 30 times more difficult. Like, because the content, so I mentioned just now, I really enjoyed O-level bio, right? But I swear, when I saw the A-level bio content, I was like, what is this? I didn't sign up for this because it's entirely different. Like, it goes down to, in O-level, you learn a lot about what happened, how it happened. But in A-level, you learn about like down to the molecular level and all the theory behind it. So it's a bit more abstract. So it's definitely more difficult. And one thing about JC is that it's normal to not get good grades or even fail subjects until A-level itself. Like I can speak quite confidently about this, is that a lot of my friends, they struggle through their like J1, CT midterms, promos, barely make it, went on to J2, still struggle. But somehow A-level, it will be like okay. You that 2 years of struggle and studying, it's kind of like a rite of passage for A-level. But eventually at A-levels, I think it's kind of okay because it's a good thing because A-level is the only thing you need to do well in. You can fail every single thing before that. But if you do well for A-level, that is all you bring it with you to university or like in the future. So that's one good thing. But of course, not saying that you will miraculously like you fail all the way, then suddenly A-level you can pass. But of course, the struggle is also part of like the whole working hard and improving process. Okay, so after JC, I went on to uni. So I took life sciences and psychology. Life sciences is basically biology lah, but it's a more generic term for biology. So JC definitely prepared me for my course, because it is kind of like what I learned in JC, but add on even more. Yeah, so add on the content, add on the depth of the theory and everything. Yeah, so it prepared me. But I want to also share like, so I feel like I'm guessing that people may have this idea like, so does JC or poly prepare you better for university? I So for my own example, I feel like JC definitely prepared me for my course, and what I learned in JC was very similar to what I learned in uni. It's basically, it forms the foundation. But compared to my poly friends, maybe maybe in terms of content, I went through a bit more in depth, but their lab techniques are better than me. So for life science, at least you can't say is it JC people will do better or poly people will do better, because they had a 3 years experience of life sciences or medical tech, like something related. So they are also fully capable of, they also have their own strength. Then for maybe let's say a subject like computer science or business, JC students never had any experience with it before. So do you think poly students will be better than the JC student in terms of this kind of subject? Because since they learn it in poly for 3 years, while JC students never had this kind of interaction. But also not true, because I feel like my JC friends, they are, some of my JC friends who are in this course, even though they have never had any experience with these things, but they could also pick up quite well and do well. So what's the point of this? So meaning like both sides also can do well lah. Yeah, so okay, so even though it sounds like, then what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, doesn't matter you come from JC or poly. It is more like the course, your uni course, like maybe how talented you are in that, and how much you like it, and also how much effort you put in it. That determines your uni experience and grades. Whether you come from JC or poly, I don't think it affects the outcome a lot. Yeah, of course a bit here and there, but honestly, I really don't think it matters so much. Yeah. So beyond all these things, right? Like I said just now, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and honestly, I had no idea what I want to do even after O level, after A level, even when I picked the course, I picked life science and psychology simply because I enjoy biology. I enjoy learning about human body and human mind. Therefore, I took life sciences and psych. If you ask me, also, what do you want to do as a job, like after taking life sciences and psychology? My answer throughout my university years was also very vague, very uncertain. I think it's perfectly fine to not know what you want, but it will be greatly advantageous if you know what you want. So to you guys who are 16 or 17 right now, it will be good to slowly to start thinking of what you want. Life goes forward, but it makes more sense thinking backwards. So if you can plan backwards, that's actually pretty good. Like you really are ahead of other people if you can plan it like that. But not everyone has the so lucky that they know what they want, or maybe what they thought they want is not what they actually want. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that can happen, but the first step is start thinking. Yeah. And the last thing what I want to say is it really doesn't matter which route you pick, because of especially for the 41% who are undecided, because if you are undecided, I'm sure there is some consideration. While for the rest, maybe you are quite sure that you want JC, you want poly, so that's okay. But for the undecided one, what I want to tell y'all is it doesn't matter which route you pick eventually, or even whatever you do in the future. Like beyond this picking of JC or poly, right? I can tell you straight, it's going to be tough anyway, and it's going to be very fun also. Like there will be the fun parts and good parts. So the most important thing is do your very best, and the very best of you will open up the options in the future. So that's the most important part.
Okay, thank you, Xingwei, for the inspiring sharing that life is going to be hard, and it doesn't really matter what you do, it's still going to be hard. Okay, I think for Xingwei's perspective, I think for her, maybe some of you can really relate that, you know, at 16 or at 17, you have really no idea what you want to do in life yet. Okay, then for her, it was just a bit more intuitive because she did well in secondary school and then she moved on to JC. But I think as she shared, there's pros and cons to everything. There's no one fixed best answer here. I think that was quite insightful. If you do have questions later, Xing will actually be in the JC room, so you can actually throw a lot more questions about what exactly do you learn in a bio at A levels. Okay, next up we actually have Emmanuel. So Emmanuel right now is actually still studying in NUS. He's doing business administration, but he's also majoring in entrepreneurship and physics. I'll let him have the time to share more about his experience, and also a bit more about how exactly is he taking so many things in uni. He's like in business, and then like he's doing entrepreneurship and physics. I'll let him break it down a bit more to all of you. Okay, Emmanuel, over to you now.
All right, what's up, guys? Hope my audio is clear. Is it clear? All right. Okay. I think I'll share a bit more about my journey first, lah. So I actually came from Montfort, so it's a very underdog school. Then I went to CJ, and then from CJ, I went all the way to NUS. So actually, I during my time in CJ, it's quite a like life-changing story, lah. So I actually thought that it'd be very good for me to share my experience in CJ. So I didn't come from a very, very good school, and my O-level grades were okay. Like I screwed up here and there, so I in the end got like 14. But what actually I managed to do was in JC, I studied really hard. And I think that the environment in JC was very good in the sense that if you really want to focus, you can really change your life. So like I managed to get like straight A's, except for one. And then I topped the class for CJ, and I managed to go into my dream course like 2 years ago, which was computer science lah. So that was actually like when I was lost, you know, like, cause I'm sure many of you also haven't really considered what you really want to do. And so this was my framework lah. Like back when I first applied for uni, I went to see like what's the highest starting salary, which particular course could get me there. Because what I really wanted to do was make sure I did well for my family also, right? Because I know in the future I have to support my parents and stuff. So I really wanted to fast track my way there. And so I really just decided, okay, whatever's gonna pay the highest, I'm just gonna go for it. So I managed to get that. But along the way, I actually started to give tuition, started to teach, and I really found my passion in teaching. Then what I did was I took 2 gap years. So I went to go and teach at a tuition center that I'm still teaching at. And I completely changed my whole life view because I really realized that passion really matters more than just chasing like certain things in life. And so like I really want to share the whole experience and the whole journey. So as I was saying in JC, right, I really turned my grades entirely. Like I was doing okay. I would say I was like what Daryl and Xinwei were sharing, like coasting in O-level track. Right. So like for the certain subjects that you really like, for me that was physics, right? It was very easy to always get an A. But for other subjects that were like more difficult, like SS, that kind of thing, like those like you're not naturally interested in certain subjects, then you struggle. So one thing that I want to share is in JC, right, you need to be very selective about what you're really interested in also. So you have to choose a subject combi and make sure you really like it. Because to me, every minute that I studied, right, it didn't really feel like studying. It really felt like, wow, I'm very interested in the subject. And I didn't mind like grinding it out. Like I know like the grind season is damn real. Like when it comes to JC, right, when I was like with I was stats back then. And so every date like that me and my ex-girlfriend had, we was just completely studying, and like it was very, very painful at the like the whole process. But at the same time, like towards the end, I really kind of just felt a groove for it, and I really loved it. Like at the end of it, it's like a bittersweet experience. Like when you really put so much effort, and then you really get your rewards. Like after that, it really feels really good. And I think that one thing that JC really changes you, right? About or rather, one thing that how JC actually shapes you is it gives you this very crazy work ethic. So even now, like in uni, like Daryl was mentioning that I'm juggling many, many things. I feel that all came from JC. Cause like when I was exposed to like what other people are doing in the JC realm, like it's very competitive, right? Then I really started to think like, oh, if I want to get ahead, I must really pile things up. I must really work through like everything. And it built that sense in me that like if I wanted more, I had to give more. And I was completely fine with that. And I feel that most of you guys also, perhaps now you're in this position where you're trying to think, you're scared of whatever decision you might have to make, like whether it be JC, like go to the JC route, Chiong study, that kind of thing. You might be scared of that. Or you might also be scared of like taking the leap of faith, going to poly, finding your passion there and working really hard at it. I feel that if it's one thing I want to leave with you today, it's just that it's always better to work hard, pursuing your passion and accomplishing it, than being scared and just not taking the leap of faith. So I think more or less, a lot of you would have the inclination. You kind of know what you want and you kind of know what you don't. I really just want you to take that leap of faith. And I hope that like my sharing here, like motivates you to really choose what's best for you lah. At the same time, I also like to say that the entire experience in JC, like what Xinwei and Daryl mentioned, they said it was very difficult. I think that is quite subjective because there are many new subjects, one of which is economics. So I think some of you guys might have taken O-level economics, but there's a very small slice of people. You should actually just get a like good overview of what content might be like, and this can be found like online. So like if you search anything like the subject combinations that you can take, I just suggest that you read the syllabus overview. Then you'll really realize that okay, certain subjects you might have a natural interest, and if you do right, just pursue it because you're gonna have a lot of fun. You're gonna love it, and I feel that in JC, the bonds that you might have are more tight-knit. So I'm not 100% sure, but like some of my poly friends were saying that they don't have a class, like a common class. And so they don't see the same people every day. But in JC, right, if you got a good group of close friends, they are with you 24/7. It's super fun. And you might end up with them in army also. Like the large proportion of guys at least, right? They actually go into army with their friends. And like it's like if you think about it, right, that's like 4-5 full years of having fun. And then after you go to uni with the same people, and if it's all good vibes, then it's good vibes all the way. And you will really, really, really love it. That's what I felt lah. Okay, I personally loved it. And my JC experience was the best. Like I would say those are the 2 best years of my life. Like no matter how shag it was, right? Like waking up at 6, like to study before school kind of thing. Wow, it was damn crazy, but it was very worth it. And I would always like, if you ask me, would you do it again? I say yes. I really like the grind lah. And I think that really changed me for the better also. So even now, as I'm doing business in NUS, I feel that it has really shaped the way I think about the course and the kind of work ethic that I have to accomplish whatever I want lah. So I do have quite lofty goals. Like I want to make sure that my cap is still like reasonably high. So like there's second upper and first class kind of cap. So I'm really trying to maintain like a good grade, and I feel that that is really doable as long as you really just set your mind to it, put your goals, and then just make sure that you work really hard for that lah. As for physics, yeah, I'm taking modules for physics because I do have a genuine interest in it, and I really like it. So like I said, subject the affinity to your subject also really depends on your interest. So I really highly suggest that you guys also spend some time trying to explore like your own interests. And I feel that that will take you to many places in life. And that's really more important, like to find out what you really want to do, like to find out a passion, because everything else will fall into place once you really know what your goals are like lah. Yeah, and later in the breakout room, if you have any questions for me, more than happy to share. Like I'm pretty open. I think you can tell from my vibe. So anything, like there's nothing off limits. So just ask me lah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Emmanuel. Please ask him about his ex-girlfriend. Just JK. Okay, anyway, Emmanuel will be in the undecided room. He'll be with Yongxuan. So if you do want to ask him questions, while I assign you all the breakout rooms, you all can actually switch the breakout rooms yourself. Okay, so you can figure that out. You all are very tech-savvy people. Okay, up next, the sharing will actually be from John. John's actually from Singapore Poly, after which he made it to NTU and he did communications. For those that are into the gaming world, you all probably heard of Aftershock. Okay, John's actually working at Aftershock right now. So I'll let him share more about his poly journey as well as how poly and then how he made it to uni and things like that. Okay, John, up next to you.
Hi everybody. So I'm Jonathan, as Darren mentioned. So I just a little background of myself. So I came from Yio Chu Kang Secondary School, so it's like a very lame neighborhood school. Moving from Singapore Poly, and so what I got from O levels was quite clear to me that I'm personally not very academic. So I got a 17 for R5 and R4 I got a 13. Yeah, so I get the -2 lah for CCA after that. But it was from there also it made me realize that okay, I'm really not a very academic person. Even though 17, I mean, arguably you can scrape through getting into try to apply for uni. Apply for JC. But I decided not to because after some discussion with my family and understanding a bit more about what's the difference between JC and Poly, I realized that actually what I would need is an conducive environment where I can exemplify my abilities, exemplify my skills a little bit better. So what happened was because of that, a lot of this like discussion and understanding of what I am, I decided that okay, for the better of myself, I would decide to go to a poly, and what I chose in the end was business administration at Singapore Poly. So why I chose business at the point of time, I think as many of you also, none of us are really was very clear or are very clear like what you're gonna do in the future. So at the point of time, I was really just like striking off what I don't want to do. So I know I'm not going to do like engineering. I don't see myself being an engineer. I don't see myself doing humanities stuff. I don't see myself being a scientist or researcher, things like that. So it's just down to okay, it seems like business, and then because like oh, I want to work with people. I'm more like I feel like I'm a more dynamic person. So I thought maybe I want to specialize in marketing in the future, which I did like in the end. So that was that decision criteria and mind frame and mindset that I had moving into Singapore Poly. So then from there from Singapore Poly, I think it's a little bit to share about what the poly environment gave for us. Other than that conducive environment, I think what Xingwei say was it's quite true. So like JC gives you a very good environment where you like really can study and be very academic. Poly on the other hand, it trains you and it trains you in a more technical aspect. So you get to focus on a specific topic, and then other than just like learning like technicality, what it is and how you do certain things, they also give you like very industrial experiences. Like some of the projects you do, like even though it's part of the module, it is tagged to like a company. Like maybe I'll do a project for a company that they may or may not use in the future, but at least you know that you are in a way trying to solve like real problems. So that kind of give you the additional like uh, interest and passion for it also, because you get to do something that you feel that you might be able to make a change. Other than that, so what I did in my year also, I had a lot of opportunity to go overseas where I do projects like that as well. So I went to at the point of time I went to China to do like to come up with like a marketing plan for this thing called the Sino Tianjin Eco City lah, basically. And that is on top of like other things that I did. So and if you see the picture of me presenting like that, right? That was also a project I did. Like it's a case study competition, sort of by FedEx. I don't know whether they still have it, but I joined my friend, and that was because I had like good relationship with my lecturer, and he encouraged me to try for this thing. So that would give me even more interest and give me more like understanding of like how to plan certain thing, how to come up with a more comprehensive marketing timeline. I talk about a lot of marketing because that was my specialization in the end. Then following on, I didn't go into business for university because I felt that I wanted to have a more um, I want to understand the whole like pipeline, the whole funnel lah of what marketing is. So what we learn in business and marketing in business is a lot more close to the management side. So you understand more about budgeting, understand more about how to decide on the target audience and things like that. Then when I went to communications, that's where I understand the actionable part, like creating ads, like coming up with creatives, like planning the ad campaigns and stuff like that. So I felt that that decision gave me a stronger edge into like what I really am passionate for, which is marketing, and that's how I eventually moved into Aftershock. So I guess just to end it off, I mean, you all can ask more questions later, but just to end it off, like I think what you don't need to like have a very clear mindset of like or have a clear idea of like what you really want to do right at the beginning, because I didn't as well. It's just an inkling or it's just an interest and I just went for it. And then you also need to have an understanding of like what you are. Are you a more academic person or are you more technical person? Are you more hands-on? So different people, we are all just programmed and born differently. So just from this understanding of yourself, you will be able to make a better decision of what's best for you. And then from there, you'll be able to thrive according to whatever environment you choose. Yeah, I think that's all I have for now. Happy to share more later.
Yep, thank you, John. If any of you have more questions about what exactly he went through in poly and in university, feel free. John will actually be in the poly room. You can hop over to ask him questions later on in the breakout room. Okay, now down to our last but not least panelist, Yongxuan. Yongxuan is actually an NTU undergrad. Okay, he was studying at TP before this. I'm sure he has a lot more to share with you, so I'll let him take over the time. Yongxuan, please.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. So everyone can hear me clearly, right? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about my secondary school first. I was from Temasek Sec, and I'm pretty sure some of you might relate to me because I'm not the brightest student. I've been through multiple firing squads. Even like I talked to the vice principal personally, like one-to-one, even with parents coming down and talking to the vice principal. There were a lot of tears, not from me. Yeah, so I almost retained in Sec 3, but I was like given a chance. So I passed the sort of the supplementary exam and proceed on to Sec 4, which I also continue to do badly. Like my prelims, my L1 R5 was like 43 or something. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Like I was quite depressed and like I keep fighting my family and stuff like that. But overall, at the end of the day, my R1 R5 was 20 and my R1 R4 was 15. So I know I'm not the study type. Like I definitely don't like to study. So I thought like JC is definitely out of the picture. Like no way I'm going there. There's like confirm die. That's for me lah. Like I don't like study. So I decided to go to poly. So I looked through the book and like to choose what kind of course I want. And at the time I was quite interested in math and physics and science, basically physics lah. So I decided to go into aerospace engineering. That's where I went to Temasek Poly. And for me, Poly was quite fun. The workload wasn't as heavy as I thought. Like what Daryl explained earlier, I feel that it's a constant effort. It needs constant effort to maintain your GPA. But it's also normal because like the classes are like 1 hour, and then you have like a break, and then you have another class. And some days you have long hours of classes. Some days are like 2-3 hours, and then you are like done with school. So it's the flexibility is there, but then it also, you're treated as like young adults, and you are expected to do your own studying, having your own discipline to go and look through, go and study, go and do your work, your projects. Yeah. But for me, I'm not the study type. So what I did is I signed up for like what do you call it? Student union. So what student union is it's a group of students, a group of student leaders who come together, and they're sort of like the voice of the students. They talk to the teachers, they hold events for the school, for the students. Yeah. So I decided to take part in that because it seems fun. And yeah, my 3 years of poly was quite happening. And then I took aerospace because of math and physics. Yeah, pretty much like this. Then after I graduated with a GPA of 3.43, which is quite below average for my course, that's when I start to look at uni. And I didn't really quite make the cut. I got lucky and got into year 1 of mechanical engineering in NTU. So mechanical engineering is somewhat similar to aerospace, just that it's a more generic course. Aerospace is more specialized. Yeah. And as you can see from the photos, I am not the study type. I still take part in many things. Like I play soccer, I join hall pageant event, and on the bottom right corner, you see that's not my kid lah. It's actually I joined a camp that is hosted for all these kids, for kindergarten children, and we are just there to facilitate in the games and stuff like that. Yeah. So you won't really find pictures of me studying because I don't really do that. But yeah, you should lah. So yeah, that's all I have to share. So
Okay,
I'll
no
be in
worries.
the undecided room later with Emmanuel.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yongshen, for the sharing. I think that was very insightful. So I think his main message was that he didn't study lah, but you should. Okay. So I think that was very insightful. For those that are actually interested to go to poly, I think you can ask both Yongshen and John a little bit more, because there's also this thing called direct from poly. You actually go to direct year 2, which means your university is truncated to 3 years instead of 4, because of the modules that you have cleared in Polytechnic that's relevant to your course. I think those are some questions that you all can think about asking. Other than that, we actually have a very short break. You can go to pee, you can drink water, whatever you want. But after 2 minutes, I'll actually assign you to the breakout rooms. You're given the option to move within the rooms if you want to. But right now, I'm assigning you to the room according to your preference. So for those that have not indicated what preference you want beside your name, the bracket, right? Please do so. If not, I'll just assign you to a random room. Okay. The breakout room will start in exactly 2 minutes, so around 9:10. So be sure to come back then. Okay. Hi everyone. I hope you had a good time asking questions. But now there's another round, right, where you can ask anybody any question. We'll make sure that everybody is back first before we progress from here. Maybe you can already start typing any questions that you all have on the chat. If you have a particular panelist or even to myself, you all have questions for us, you can add us lah, so we know who you're asking the question to. If not, we'll just let the panelists decide who wants to answer the question. So we'll have this Q&A for everyone.
I got a lot of questions I haven't finished answering.
I know. For those that still have a lot of questions, right? Please go onto our discussion chat in the Telegram channel. I think our panelists will still be there lah, so you can ask them more questions. Or if our panelists are free, they can actually stay on this webinar. You can continue asking the questions. For panelists that needs to leave, you can leave first lah. I mean, yeah. So don't worry.
Okay. Can I continue answering my question?
Go ahead. You can.
Okay. So wait, can I wait, let me see. Oh, what is the I think the question is what are the pros and cons of joining CCA? Wait, I answered the life science and medicine question already. So it's very different. Yeah. The pros and cons of joining CCA. I think CCA is I can't remember, but I think CCA is compulsory in Raffles. Like at least in my you can like don't be so active member, but I think it's quite important. And yeah, I would really strongly encourage you to do something out of studying also. Like if you always study, right, you also cannot get everything into your mind, right? Yeah. So I think even in like let's say job search, right, to have something to talk about in your CCA, like your experience of working with people, leading a team, I think is quite important also. Yeah. Be it both for like CV purpose or be it for like your own mental health purpose, please do consider joining a CCA. Might not participate in a lot of cons and events. Okay, that one I think it depends on what you are looking for to what kind of portfolio. Yeah, like what the another person answered also, which is what kind of things are you what kind of things are you aiming for? Yeah. Is it possible to take psychology if I don't take bio for both O level and A level? Yes. What's the longest you study? Wow, I don't know. But I cannot really focus for very long, so I don't study. Don't think I have one shot study very long. I will take breaks in between for sure. How do you know if you are suited for the stressful environment in JC? I truly believe that everyone has some ability to adapt to stressful environment. Human is like meant to adapt to all these things. Yeah. Okay. Actually, now I don't know this question is for me or like previous breakout room one or for everyone.
Okay,
so I will just start answering.
For those that came back from the breakout rooms to this main room, we actually spent the last 10 minutes of this webinar whereby you can ask any question that you want to on the chat. If you have a particular panelist that you want to ask, you can add them so that they can answer the question. So maybe I'll just pick up the first question and get the ball rolling. A more generic sort of question. The one I think Xing already addressed a bit is CCA compulsory for JC and Poly? I think Xing shared for JC is compulsory, but how much you want to participate, it depends. Maybe John and Yongshen, can you share a little bit more about CCA for Poly? Does it affect your grades or anything?
I think you can take that question. No, CCA does not. Sorry, I muted myself. No, CCA does not affect your grades. There's no -2 like what they do for O levels. It's really just for you to explore your hobbies, really, for you to like make friends, and maybe try something different. But if you are just trying to play the numbers game for academic users, no, the CCA does not really help you at all, actually.
But then I might want to add, you joining CCA and having good grades, right? It may show that you're all-rounder student. Like you don't just do studies, but you also do other recreational activities. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I direct the next question to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, no A math can still go to JC? Muted, bro.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, you can still go to JC, but you'll be very limited to I don't think you cannot take any pure sciences really. So if you didn't take A math, right, and you want to go to JC, you can only take H1 math, which means you confirm can only take art stream. So you cannot take any sciences. Yeah. You cannot take any H2 sciences lah. Yes.
So if they took POA instead of A Math, would that help them for math, or would that help them more for econs?
Oh, definitely not lah. I feel that POA is a bit irrelevant to JC. Now in JC, if you take H1 math, right, it's actually A Math. You're just learning A Math but with statistics. So yeah, you couldn't escape from A Math if you wanted to go JC lah. And then what was the other question? Sorry, combined science can still go JC. Yes, can. Yeah. Took A Math and combined science, right? You can still take like pure sciences. So I'm teaching like a few of my students. They're in J1 now. Last year they took combined science. And they still managed to score an A for H2 physics. But I mean, he was smart. He's smart lah. So I don't know whether that's a fair representation. Yeah.
Yongshin, must secondary school never take A Math, go poly? Is it compulsory to take A Math?
Not really. Like it depends on the course. It's good to know if you have AMAth because in poly we don't really learn AMAth, we learn calculus, which is something else.
Okay. Going back to Shamir's question, I think John wants to add on a bit.
Samir, so Samir, I understand your concern about wanting to go to motion graphic design. I feel that at the end of the day, it's really, I think this goes out to like everybody here also. I think it's very important to first understand what you personally want, and that you need to align your interests and expectations with your parents, and that has to go a long way with communication as well. I think whether or not the course itself or the job itself entails like a high paying job in the future. I mean, if you're already comparing with like doctors and lawyers, yeah, definitely everyone's gonna pay less than these jobs. But ultimately, what you're gonna get in the end from the job is really dependent on the company, is really dependent on your experience. If you have interest in motion graphic design and you have a certain niche to it, and you have a certain like nuance of like doing something great, then definitely somebody is going to pay you them higher for it, for your ability, for you just being able to do what you can do. So I think it's just more important for you to realize that. And if motion graphic design is really something that you feel passionate about, and you find that in the future it will have some value, you need to do your research and you need to communicate that with your parents. I think that's the most important.
Okay, thanks, John. I'll wrap up with the last few questions. For Xingwei and Iman, feel free to jump in on this if I'm factually wrong. If you did not take A Math and you intend to go to JC, are you only stuck to the science stream? The answer is actually no. You can still attempt to take H2 Math, but you'll struggle a lot to the extent that you're highly advised against it. Regardless of what subject combination you take, be it hybrid or pure or science stream, right? You still need the math subject because math is a compulsory subject lah. Even if you do art stream, you at least need to take H1 math. Taking H1 math without A levels becomes a lot easier. So in a way, if you didn't take A math in O level, you're more advised to go to the art stream. Is that accurate?
Wait, I'm not sure whether you can take H2 math without A math.
So it's like a criteria lah.
I think it's a prerequisite, but wait, let me just search it up.
I think we can clarify on that a bit more, and we can also go and search up for more information. So I just want to answer two more questions before we move on. I think Priya had a question on whether taking 4H2 or 3H2 is better to go to uni. I think you can relate it back to O levels. Is it better to take more subjects or focus your energy on a core few subjects? So by taking 4H2, you are spread more thinly, but you get to choose best of those few to get the best combination for your rank point. But if you take 3H2, in terms of allocation, the percentage is fixed, but then you have lesser to study. So at the end of the day, it's dependent on your workload itself. There are merits to taking 4H2, but of course, with a heavier workload. In terms of scholarship, I think I can answer for both JC and Poly. Not only your grades, you need to have a good portfolio in terms of your leadership abilities, the sort of projects that you work on, things that show that you're all-rounder. I think those are what gets you to scholarship the best. I mean, gives you the best chances to a scholarship. Okay, Iman, do you have any updates?
I saw that there are some people that manage to actually appeal, but they have to attend some bridging course. But I'm not sure which JC actually allows, so maybe you might want to check. Like depending on which school you're planning to go lah. Maybe like on the day that you all get your results, if you have like a preconceived idea of which school you want to go, and you are planning to take H2 math without having A math, you might want to call the admins and ask whether it's actually possible. I don't think all schools will allow, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
Okay, but I thank everyone for your questions. I think the panelists also had a good time sharing all of you. I'm sure you might have some more follow-up questions, but maybe you can leave that to the end of the webinar. So do allow me to wrap up for this. Okay, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. And this webinar is actually brought to you by the Overmark Tutor team. If you're actually very observant, you actually spot a few of our faces inside this list lah. So I'm very happy to announce, because when I started Overmark last year, I was the only tutor and I was only providing chem and physics notes. As those that have been with me for a while, you all will have realized that like I started from scratch, and then slowly we build up the community together. But I'm very happy to announce that recently I reached out to a lot of other tutors, and a lot of them are actually very enthusiastic to come on board for the same cause in helping students along their academic journey. So I'd just like to introduce you to some of the team members. If you are still in the chat or if you're moving to A-levels, I think it'll be very relevant. So for the O-level team itself, I'll be heading the chemistry and physics department. Kai Wen, maybe some of you have seen him in the chat. I think he's hiding somewhere in the webinar as well. Okay, he's actually going to be heading the math side. Okay, Xing Wei will actually be heading the bio side of things. And then for herself, she did bio in uni as well. So you can know that, the notes that she's about to put out is going to be like pretty legit stuff. And I've seen it, it's quite aesthetic, nicer than mine. Okay, but that's for another day. We actually have Han Jin. I'm not too sure whether there are any lower sec students here, but she'll actually be heading that side of the syllabus. Victoria and Brian, Victoria will be working on the English and the literature side of things, while Brian will be providing more for the physics notes. For the A-levels, which I think is a lot more relevant, Emmanuel will actually be the physics tutor. So you already see some of his notes going up on the Telegram channel. We'll be releasing a lot more in the first half of the year. We actually have Elaine, Ingru, Victoria, and Brian providing notes as well. We are also onboarding another math tutor and chemistry tutor. So pretty much all the notes that you'll need, you'll be able to find them in the A-levels channel as well. So to just do a quick plug here, if you haven't already joined the A-levels Telegram channel, I strongly encourage you to do so we can continue to reach out to you to bring content like this straight to you. Just to plug in a little something extra that we haven't actually announced is that we'll have our TikTok account coming out very soon. So this platform will be launched in December. You can actually start looking for us, but right now there's no content. So what we'll be having a lot more interactive, relatable student content on TikTok. So do check us out when the announcement is launched. For the rest of you here, if you haven't yet done the survey to provide feedback on how we improve on the notes and things and the crash courses or the curated notes, please help us to give the feedback so we can constantly improve. But overall, I'd like to thank everyone for your time for attending this webinar. I think the panelists ourselves, we had a good time sharing about our experiences. But I think hopefully as a participant, you also managed to take away some information that I think might not be easily available out there, and to help you make a more informed decision when you receive your O-level results and decide whether you want to go to a poly or a JC. So on behalf of all the panelists, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this session. If you do have questions, I think the panelists will be hanging about just a little longer to ensure that they can answer your questions. Okay, so if not, I'll conclude the webinar here, and thank you everyone for attending.